The ministry would be great if you didn't have to deal with crabby and uncooperative people. People who want to have conflict with you. Nobody loves conflict, but it's real in ministry. If you've ever had to deal with it, stay tuned to this episode and we're going to talk about that very subject. I remember there was a guy when I was working at church that really, his family was a really good family. They were part of the church, active at the church. His wife in particular was really worked hard to contribute to the efforts in volunteer sense. But this guy, Frank, had an edge to him, and he was apparently the self-appointed guy to make sure Dick Hardy didn't go off the rails someplace. And he would always have this thing about whatever I did that he was just, to me, he would go into an attack mode, and it would drive me nuts. And I'm thinking, why do I have to deal with this guy? But the reality was, he was there. He felt like this to me, and felt like a sandpaper kind of guy. So I ended up having to figure out, how am I going to deal with Frank? Yeah. Because he was there, I was there. I was in a paid staff role. He's a volunteer.
But you're both not going anywhere.
We're not going anyplace. Yeah. And I had to figure out a way to talk with him. I remember one time I just said, okay, I called him up. Frank, we've got to talk. Can I pop over? Because he wasn't feeling well at the time. And had some illness was going his direction. And so we ended up with me going over there and talking through our stuff. And it wasn't like it was just, boom, everything was all hunky-dory, but it was a process. Mm-hmm. And I'm just telling you, as a pastor, you've got to address these things. They won't go away by themselves. The Frank and Dick issue wasn't going to go away. Yeah. We had to start working through it. Yeah. So today we want to talk with you about how do you deal with this when you're dealing with a person that you've got conflict with. You wish it would just go away, but it doesn't go away. So we're going to rattle off here a few things that we think will be helpful to you as you address conflict in the church. So Jonathan, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, so I think the first step to do as you're trying to, address the conflict that you have is you have to be humble. I mean, bottom line. Yeah. There's just no other better way to put it really, is to be humble. Recognize that you might not have it all figured out. Now, I know that's hard. I know that's hard. That's hard to swallow. Yeah. We're all that way. We think through our lens. We look at life through our lens. But you know what? Although you're God's man or woman for the church or for your leadership role or for whatever, that doesn't make you infallible. Right. And all of us have made mistakes. I mean, no one is perfect. And so I think just being humble to say, okay, I look at this situation where there's conflict. Is there anything from my perspective I need to think through? Now, I know this takes some time, and it, when the emotions are high and all that, then it's you got to get to the point where your emotions are under control, so you can say, okay, do I need to do something different, act different? Do I need to be open to seeing this situation through a different lens than the one I'm currently looking through? Exactly. So I'd start off by being humble.
Well, I think the dovetails right off with that. The second one is to be introspective. Now, by that, I mean, look at yourself. In this process of being humble, you've got to drill in here. It's possible you could have made an error. Now, it isn't always the case, but I have the propensity to make mistakes. Jonathan does, you do. So you've got to look inside. Consider the other person's view of you. Now, you can sit and say, well, they're wrong. Well, if you're going to be introspective, you've got to look inside. Yeah. And then you've got to consider how are you playing out to someone else? Mm-hmm. And by the way, in this introspection, I have found over the years to have my spouse or a very close friend speak into my life is frequently very, very helpful. Yeah. So be humble, be introspective. Number 3, be prayerful. Always in prayer. Now, we don't have this listed third because it's third most important, but it's a critical point for you in resolving conflict. You've got to be prayerful. Mm-hmm. If you go in your own strength, not going to work. Yeah. You've got to go in the strength of the Lord. Yeah. Lift yourself and the church member to the Lord because you're both involved here. He loves you both equally. And so you've got to ask for the Lord's help, ask for his wisdom in navigating the situation.
Yeah, then a fourth recommendation for you really is to do Matthew 18. Follow the principles there of how to address the conflict. And I want to just point out here, in our day and age, it is very easy to send a Facebook message, post publicly a Facebook post, to send an email, to send a text message, and that is that is not the biblical way to follow up when you have conflict. In fact, I would say when you're posting on Facebook, that's an unbiblical way, because you're not going one-to-one.
Completely counterproductive.
You're opening it up to a bunch of people, and that is wrong. Now, as a pastor, you have to get face to face. And, it may feel old school to some people, but, you got to get, or at least on the phone, talking in person, as best as you can, because the conflict is best going to be resolved when you hear their tone of voice, when you're sitting, you're seeing that you feel it. There's that feel that you don't get through that. So make sure you follow the process. There's a reason this is in the Bible. It's because this is what works. Exactly, and so follow the process. Matthew 18, we don't need to go on the details. You probably already know it, but make sure to incorporate that as you're addressing conflict.
And the fifth one, final one we want to talk about here, is to relearn trust. Now, this can be a tricky one, because if you do the things we talked about, you've met with the person, you've prayed, you resolve the conflict, or you've started working the edges off of this thing, you could think that, okay, it's just back to hunky-dory and we're all good. Well, you want to be all good, but going forward, I would suggest that you appropriately keep your guard up while you're learning to trust this person again. Be willing to trust, but be careful. Some may say, well, you're not truly forgiven, and I would have forgiven that person. And I would say, no, that's not true. You have forgiven that person, but you're being wise as you begin to open yourself up again, as you begin to get vulnerable with this person again. You're being very, very careful, and I believe that's a right thing for you to do that will really, in the long haul, strengthen the new and growing renewed friendship and relationship you have with this person. Yeah. Be honoring of the other person all the way through, but while you're relearning trust, if you'll process it this way, you'll find it be in good stead going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me give you a quick recap on this. The 5 different steps, you could say, to help address conflict as that you might have with a church member. The first was to be humble. Second, be introspective. Third, be prayerful. Fourth is to do and follow Matthew 18. And then fifth is to relearn trust. Now, I don't know what kind of conflict, there's all kinds of conflict that you might have out there. Some conflict feels like betrayal. And one of the things I'd encourage you to do, if you haven't yet, is to listen to episodes 28 and 29 or watch episodes 28 and 29 so that you can see how to respond when you feel betrayed in ministry. We talk about that in those 2 episodes. It's kind of a 2-part little dialogue. And so I would encourage you to check that out and make sure you do all that you can to continue to help as a leader addressing the conflict and the things that come up. Yeah. And as well, just becoming a better leader in general is something that we're constantly talking to people about, because we believe that growing pastors are led by growing leaders. Growing churches are led by growing leaders. And so that means you and I all have to be growing all the time. And one of the ways you could do that is by taking the 5-day leadership challenge that Dick and I put together. That is basically a 5-day, 15 minutes a day investment in your life. We send out a daily video for 5 days in a row. And so it's sequential, it builds upon each other, and it's a way for you to help grow as a personal leader of the ministry that you are a part of. So be sure to check that out. Just go to Leaders.Church/challenge and you can get signed up and start today. Leaders.Church/challenge. And then as well, please rate and review. We'd love to hear your feedback. In fact, we have a review we wanted to read today from Patty Jean Jr. 1954. This person said, "Great content. This is outstanding content for any pastor or church leader." Well, hey, thank you, Patty Jean, for that comment. We appreciate that, and we'd love to share your review. So be sure to write that review, and we look forward to being able to share it here, hopefully someday.
I hope so. Real soon
on the podcast. Yeah. And then please subscribe. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening on a podcast platform, hit that subscribe button. And we just thank you so much for being a part of the Church Tips podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Hey, Jonathan here. Real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips Podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.